Welcome and hello. So if it looks a little dim here right now, there's actually a reason behind it. If you look down here, you'll see this little jack-o'-lantern. He's lit up and flickering. I don't know how well it's showing up. But today I thought, getting in the mood, spooky season, fall, I thought I would show you a couple of quick little crafts, well, semi-quick depending on how you do it, crafts like carving a jack-o'-lantern for Barbies out of little foam pumpkins, and making little gravestones out of foam core. So let's get started. So the jack-o'-lantern craft will require a bag of pumpkins. Now you can get these from the Dollar Tree, or I got these off Amazon years ago. So I don't know if they're still available. I did go on Amazon and look, and I found several places that were selling these. These are about, whoop, one just volunteered. Look at that. These are about 2 inches across. But anyway, as you can see, our doll, Rebecca, who's a Barbie Looks number 11, is holding one of them. And it looks to be about the right size for a good sized pumpkin. For mine, it depends, like I said, it depends on where you get them and all. But for these, you can pull this little stem right out. You might need pliers, but there you go. You see, it's just got some barbs in it. So you'll be putting it back in. Let me show you using the one that I had created years and lit years ago. What I did was, I would cut it open like a real pumpkin. I bought a flickering LED from a site called Evan Designs. I did all the wiring myself, wired it to a switch, and yeah, you just flick the switch, little push button switch, and he lights up and flickers like he's got a candle. So anyway, today I won't show you how to light it. If you guys are interested in knowing how to light these things, there's many options if you're interested, so just let me know. Now this is a foam pumpkin with it's basically like a plastic shrink wrap outer coating. So these ones that I got, the coating was fairly thin, so it was fairly easy to carve through it. So I try to find, you can see, sometimes you can see a bit of a seam. So I try to find the face that's the smoothest, which I think is either here or here. I'm going to go here. So for these pumpkins that I bought, a pencil does seem to do pretty good. I don't know how well it shows on camera, but let's see, I drew a little triangle for one eye, and I'll come over here and do a triangle for the other eye. You should probably make them fairly large. And then we'll just do, because these do have a certain thickness now, you will be like quote unquote scooping the guts out. So and just, I mean, it's almost like carving a real one. So we're just going to give him a one-tooth grin. He's been eating way too much candy. And as you can see, you've only got so much room. His mouth is coming down pretty low. So I probably could scoot everything up a bit more. But what we're also going to do is at the top, we need to cut, I mean, I don't know how y'all carve pumpkins in your households, but the way we did it growing up is you determine where your face is going to be, and then at the very back, you carve a lid so you can drop the candle in, and at the very back you put a little diamond shape or a triangular shaped bump out in the lid so that you know which direction the lid goes on. You're not trying to guess on how to fit the lid back in place once you've carved your pumpkin. Very carefully, this is a super sharp blade, brand new. You're going to just punch it in and see how easily it goes in. And you're going to make a first carve all the way around, angling it in at an angle. And you're just going to gently and carefully, your goal is not to get the whole thing out just yet. And follow your line as best you can. And then once you've gone all the way back around again, You're going to go in very deep, pretty much the entire length of your blade, as far as you can. Be careful on the little bump out part. You can only go so far on that, but we can fix that later. Kind of a fairly shallow angle, best you can. And it's starting to loosen up a little. There we go. Yeah, I just put my blade in and gave it a little shove upwards. And voila. Just like a real pumpkin, you've got your lid. Now, as you can see, it's solid foam. You want to take your X-Acto and you're just going to start scooping out very carefully. You don't want to go through, so don't go too deep. And you want to leave a bit of thickness there. You don't want this outer shell to collapse, so it's going to need some support. So what I would do is I would just go around like this, little shallow divots, and then I might cut into the middle, and then just kind of pry out a chunk. That. And there's your chunk. And set aside. Now this is a messy process, and it takes a little patience. So, you know, just keep at it. Now, one other thing is you don't have to worry about the back as much. You don't have to worry about getting it as thin if you don't want to. Your real focus and care should be at the front, because that is where the face is, and so you want it thin enough that you can make it look like there's a hollowed out pumpkin, but thick enough to support carving the face and just kind of support its own weight. So, okay, so here we have started carving. We've hollowed him out. We've got him first eye carved out. So let's go ahead and do the second eye. And, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a very wonky little pumpkin. Okay, we've got two little eyeballs right there. So we're going to continue with the carving. And another thing I discovered is sometimes it's easier when you're carving something like the mouth is to like cut it into little sections and try to remove the sections rather than the whole thing at once. Right now he's being a little stubborn. There it goes. There we go. Again, so you want to be very careful here not to angle your blade upward, because if you do, you're going to make it very thin between the nose and the mouth. You want to be sure to leave that interior foam as much as possible for support. And voila, we got ourselves a little jack-o'-lantern fella. And I can make sure, see, we can line it up, and there you go. So at this point we can put the stem back in. If you want to use the original stem, which I'm, you know, for the sake of expediency, I'm going to do that. And they're not bad little stems. So there we are. I push the stem right back in. Put his lid back on, and voila. Now, one of the other things that I do is I paint the interior. It's just acrylic paint. Pumpkin guts are kind of like an orange, but they're kind of a light orange. They're lighter than the exterior. So if we grab the one that I had carved years ago, you can see that I painted it kind of a light orange. So what I have here is I just have some economical paint, Craft Smart Orange, Apple Barrel White. It can be any orange or white you want, and all I've done is added a touch of white to the orange to create a much paler orange so that it will contrast with the outer orange of the pumpkin. So then Start with the little lid here, and then all you do is just paint it. And you want to be careful not to try not to get any paint, of course, on the outer skin. This might still be a little bit bright, but you know, we're going to roll with it because you want to make sure you very carefully get inside the eyes. And the good thing about this plasticky outer shell is that if you wipe the paint off while it's wet, as soon as you make a mistake, it comes right off. Okay, so here he is. He's all painted up. He's ready to go. So we will just set him aside to dry. And we will move on to our next craft. This little gravestone. Now this is just the prototype. This is just the prototype that I created out of some scrap foam core I had lying around from creating these sets that I have, these walls. So just simple RIP, little skull shape, 1780 for the date, carved right into it. And it's just glued together with Aleene's Quick Dry Tacky Glue. I did reinforce it with toothpicks. I can show you how all that's done. We're going to make a slightly larger one today. Like I said, this was just the prototype. So yeah, let's get started. So for this craft, you're going to need a piece of scrap foam core. This one's about 4 inches by about 8 inches. So I figure 4 inches is a good height compared to our dolls for a prop tombstone. So we'll do that. So we're going to need this. You're going to need some paint, and for this I have a light kind of a cream color. It's called Toasted Marshmallow. You can use white, you can use a light gray, anything that you have on hand. White can be a little harsh, so you have to be careful with it, but yeah. The base color is going to be this color called Medium Gray from Folk Art. And also from Folk Art, we have something called Coffee Latte, which is a yellowy brown, golden brown. These are the colors that I used on this little guy. If you look super close, you could see the brownish colors coming through. Then you're going to want something to provide texture. Now, a lot of people will use balled up aluminum foil, which works just fine. It's just after maybe 1 or 2 uses, it gets mashed down and loses its effectiveness. I tend to use a jagged rock. I just found this in my driveway years ago, and I've been using it to texturize ever since. Pencil, and of course, sharp X-Acto knife. So, I'm going to take my quilting ruler my Fiskars quilting ruler that I got off Amazon, and I am just going to, let's see, we decided this was the good edge, so love these quilting rulers. You just measure in 2 inches, which is right about there. Now, does that look wide enough? Or would 2 1/4 works better? So we just line it up, and then using our knife, we make a few passes to get a good, clean cut. This is actually coming out a little ragged. It's okay because it's going to be stone and we're going to rough it up anyway. But what that indicates to me is that my blade is getting dull, so we need to change this blade. What you're going to do is you're going to be foam carving. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to peel away the layer of paper. And Dollar Tree foam board, I've heard, is the best for this sort of thing because the paper comes away pretty easily. This is stuff I got off Amazon. As you can see, it actually came off pretty good. So now we've just got a raw edge. You're trying to make it look old and beat up and weathered. And so chunks missing out the top are a good thing. Like that. I just accidentally peeled the chunk away from the top. It's on the back side anyway, but you know, Just gonna pinch and pull. So you're already starting to give it that old weathered stone look. All right, but before we get too carried away with that, what we're going to want to do is decide what we want, what design do we want on the front of it. So I think I'm just going to recreate the simple, silly design with the skull, RIP skull and date that I did on my prototype. And so, you know, I'm going to roughly eyeball it and just gently mark it into thirds, very light pencil lines, and then up here I'm just going to do a very simple block letter, very straight up. You can get as elaborate as you want, and then I'm just going to create a rough circle. I'm going to put a square at the bottom, two little circles here, kind of a little triangle there, and then a couple of lines here, and voila, you've got a really silly looking but somewhat effective skull. And then down here I'll just put, and I'm just eyeballing this, some traditional numbering, 17, let's see, what's an easy number to carve is the 7, so we'll just say 1707. So there it is, and then later on you might want to think about, you know, cracks coming in, because, you know, and for this you just kind of make squiggly lines, kind of like lightning. Crack from a corner, you might even bring it in through a letter, so you can see we're already starting to carve in with the pencil lead. So that's actually what you want to do. So now that you've got your design lightly sketched, you go in with your pencil and you push. Not too hard or you'll go all the way through. You don't want that. You just want to dent it in. So you can see, I don't know how well you can see the difference between the I and the beginning of the R, but you can start to see it's really coming out in relief. And all you're doing is gently pushing in with your pencil tip, and it's giving you that rough, ragged, old carved stone look right out the gate. Almost no effort. And you know, there really are no mistakes here. This is an old tombstone. You know, it was carved way back in the day. It's been sitting out in the weather for a century or more. You know, this one's 2 centuries. So you really want to just kind of pluck away at it. You know, it's got some chipped edges here, which caused it to crack. You know, you can even do a little bit of mess here. And then we had the one we wanted here. I'll stop there and come down. Now when you're carving something like this, if it sinks in a little, I mean, that's okay, but you're going to try, I mean, that actually might actually be more realistic to try and sink it in. I mean, you just kind of push it in with the pencil like that and the foam collapses. That might give it that more realistic effect. As you see, I'm just kind of making this up as I go along. So we'll punch him in there. Got his little teeth going. So there he is. Very ragged. We get some cracks in it. So we need to push in on the date and then we'll continue on. Okay, so another trick is to kind of round off and make it look more weathered. You don't want too crisp a line. You just take your pencil at an angle and kind of mash the foam right along those sharper edges like this. And I don't know how well you could see it, but when you paint it, it's really going to show that this is kind of dented in and weathered out. So then now what we want to do is we've got our general carving done. We don't need to worry too much about the back, but we're going to continue just gently using our fingernail to round over, kind of tear away this top edge. kind of going on the back as well, along the top. You see how it's just kind of pulling, separating, and chipping. And it's got a very stone-like texture to it. On the front, you know, so there we go. I'm going to do it, and this doesn't take long. You don't have to do a lot. Just kind of drag your thumbnail. So there we are. There he is. Now, this one, our prototype has a base. So once again, you just take your piece of foam core here. Make it fairly deep, maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch, so there's enough support for it to stand without falling over. We'll have to do the same kind of weathering carving technique on the base so that it matches as much as possible. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I am not going to remove the paper from the back to provide stability and support for this. One other trick you can use is you can just take some sandpaper and just go right down the side of it, and you can see it immediately bevels it. So this is now somewhat dressed up for a poor person who died in 1707. This is probably 100 grit sandpaper. So it's kind of rough, so it's doing that little tearing that we want. See, it's sanded the paper away as well. So there we go. Hopefully this sound isn't like nails on a chalkboard to y'all. We can take this and just kind of run a crack or two. Oops, there we go. Got to center it. There we go. Just like that. To help it stay glued is I went like this, and then right here I made a mark, kind of a divot, and then I did sort of, you know, as much in the center as I could. Started a little divot, and then I marked it on the base as well. Just like that. So this is where our little toothpick supports are going to go. So let me go ahead and get that. I'm going to probably cut off maybe 3/4 of an inch of a pointed toothpick so that I have the point. Got my Aleene's Quick Dry Tacky. I'm going to take one of my little pieces of toothpick and I'm going to put a little glue on it. And I'm going to take where I marked it, and I'm going to try and push it in. I want to leave just enough to be able to go into our base. A little bit of glue. Push it into the base. There you go. Okay, so then we have our little toothpick supports. So now we got to put some glue into our base. And then what I'm going to do in our base to make sure we don't push the toothpick is I'm going to push this pencil all the way till it hits the paper. So you can see there's a couple little divots on the back now where the pencil hit the paper. And then I'm going to put some glue on those. I just dropped a little glue in there. Need to run glue all along the base here. Make sure it glues really, really well. See, I ran glue along the base. And then just kind of set it in, and those toothpicks are just going to help. So you're going to want to set this aside to dry. It should only take about, I don't know, 15 minutes or so for the glue to set up enough. I forgot to texturize this with my stone. So it's easier to do when you haven't already started on it, but you know, hey, it is what it is. So here we are, and we just take our stone, and you're just going to gently press, you know, rotate it so it's more random. You're just going to gently press it into the surface, and as you can see, it's leaving Well, I don't know if you can see or not, to be honest with you, but it's leaving divots. So here's an unpressed side. Here's the side where we've pressed it in. And it's just giving it that slightly rough surface that old granite has. And since we've already glued it on our base, I'm going to put it on the edge of something. Let me grab this little box right here to help support it. And then I'm going to just go in and gently press in using the sharp edges of the stone. Kind of randomize it. You can sometimes roll it like that. And there you go. You get this, press it in on the edges. And then you get this rough, chipped, weathered look. So just adds a little something to the stone. So that's that. So you're just going to paint it. So if it looks like you're losing detail, don't worry about it. It's going to come back out in the end. Front, back, all over. All right, we'll come back when it's painted. Okay, so here is our tombstone with the first layer of paint on it. It's just the gray. As you can see, I wasn't even very neat about it. I just kind of slapped it on there. So you can leave it like this if you want and just go with it, and it still looks pretty cool. But if you want to take it to the next step, we're going to add a bit of brown, and you're going to want to just put a little paint on the brush. You can just brush it off on your palette a little bit. You're just going to go in, you're just going to kind of dab on randomly a little bit of brown. You don't want to cover the whole surface, you just want to have splotches of it here and there. It might look a little bright right now, but one of the next steps that we're going to do is going to tone that down. You want to make sure you get it on the base as well. So there we go. We just got a little bit of brown splotched on there. And that's all we need. So then the next step is going to be a wash. And basically all it's going to be is a little bit of black acrylic paint in water, watered down to almost like a watercolor. And what that's going to do is it's going to settle in all these little nooks and create shadows. So let's go ahead and do that, and you'll see the effect it has. So here I have in a jar a premix of the black wash. Now basically you're just going to take it, and it's going to look, once again, it's going to look really dark. And you're just going to take this really watery and paint, and you're just going to brush it on, and it's going to make it look dingy. It's going to settle into the cracks. So yeah, you're just going to want to do, and just let it run, because, you know, as things weather and age, they get streaks. So you're just going to let it run. And when it dries, you'll see that the dark has settled into all the nooks and crannies. So I don't know how well it's showing on camera here, but you can see where the dark wash has settled into all the little details that we've carved into this and brought them out. And then the last step is to bring out the highlights. And with that, we're going to do a technique called dry brushing, where you take a dry paintbrush and you take the lightest color you want, which for us is this cream color. So what you're just going to do is you're going to get just the barest amount on there, and you're actually going to go onto your napkin or something. You're going to wipe most of it off, and then on a diagonal you're just going to lightly go like this. And if you get too much, just kind of rub at it with your finger and it'll lighten right up. And you're just going to keep gently going over it. Don't press hard, you're just dragging the brush. And at first you may not look like you're seeing anything, but then all of a sudden you'll notice that the high points are being caught by that paint. And it's a very subtle but very effective technique. And then you can also try to think of how would light be hitting it. So more than likely, like if it's sunlight or whatever, it would be hitting it from the top down. So if you go like this, it's catching all those areas. You know, you don't want to overwork it. You could just do it the barest, tiniest bit. And there you go. You've got a spooky tombstone for your dolls to use in their Halloween decoration. Okay, so that's all we have for you today. We created a jack-o'-lantern and a tombstone for our Barbie's Halloween decorations. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time. Bye!